foot, 4.5 foot higher here. Having that vantage point for outdoor seating to a pavilion really works to everyone's advantage. So given that this is 12.5, and given that that's 12.5, and from the get-go we said, well, okay, that's a given. What's the greatest opportunity now? What's the best park solution we can accomplish now, given those two grades? And having a dip here going down to 9 wasn't it, because we were looking at programmatically how all these other elements fit together. Right? So I'm not saying that because it's the convenient answer. I'm not saying that because it's my easy way out and I just want to get through the evening. I'm saying it because there is a distinct advantage of having this at a nice ribbon of that modifying the grades in and around 12, 12.5, and having that higher vantage point, even though it's only 4 feet, looking down to the pavilion. So I'm not going to call it a constraint. We had a physical. All right, I will call it a constraint. We had a physical constraint. We said, how can we make the best of this? And I do think what we're proposing here will work very, very well. So,
there's two key elements that everything said maintain. Let's maintain this great lawn. Let's maintain this basketball court. And the walkway is through here now. So to keep this and this intact, keeping this as large as possible and that intact, we just basically kept the existing walkway. The only changes to this existing walkway is a slightly tweaked pattern. It maintains the trees, as many trees as we possibly can.
Yeah, it'll be great.
The present walkway is 5 feet wide, and for ADA, I think it needs to go to 6 to have. So it's just going to be a little bit wider. It's asphalt now. It's going to be probably something nicer than that. So whether that constraint was there or not, this is probably what you'd want to do. That it ends up satisfying a dry egress is just circumstantial, as it turns out, because this is probably what you would want to do anyway.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to create a low point here that's going to be a well, that's going to be excessively wet, a wet depression within the park. So that, again, the grades, as Tom pointed out, really worked out advantageously here. Another thing I want to point out is the path width. So we did battle internally about what the path width should be, because when you think about the neighborhood and the growing neighborhood, how wide should those paths be? And having young children learning how to ride a bike for the first time, they were wobbling all over the place. And then you have two people walking shoulder to shoulder on a path. How much room do you need for that person to get by? Right. So 6 foot is probably a little tight, but 6 foot will work. And it maintains the green element of the park. We're not over paving it. But we did debate that internally. What does it need to be? What works? Imagine how the neighborhood residents will use the park. So all of that sort of
city standards for public sidewalks in pedestrian areas are actually a minimum width of 7 feet. And it's to accommodate wheelchairs, strollers, not bicycles, but they are on sidewalks, and multiple pedestrians. And those are calculations for what you need, not necessarily, that's pretty minimal.
Yeah, ADA would typically ask for 5 foot, and if your path were any wider, every certain distance you have to have a 5 foot expansion so 2 wheelchairs can pass. Yeah. But the city is, as you mentioned, Susan, is looking at a 7 foot minimum, which they are certainly entitled to do. But we were looking at 6, with some areas where they obviously widen out at some of the junctions, right? Before I get back to Michael, any other questions?